I'm at the bad guy for not allowing my neighbor to use my car anymore. I have a neighbor who'd been fairly friendly with over the past couple of years. We live in a suburban neighborhood, and since I usually work from home, my car often sits in the driveway. A few months ago, her car was totaled in an accident, and since then, she has been struggling to get a new one due to her financial situation. One day, she asked if she could borrow my car for one day for an emergency. I agreed as it wasn't a big deal for me. This, however, soon turned into a regular occurrence, with her asking to borrow my car almost every other day for various situations, like grocery shopping, picking up her kids, attending meetings, and etc. Initially, I didn't mind as I wanted to help, but it started to become inconvenient. I feel like she was taking advantage of my generosity. On top of that, I noticed that she was not treating my car respectfully, leaving trash inside, not filling up the gas, and even causing a minor dent. I decided to address this with her and told her she could no longer borrow my car. She seems taken aback and become upset, stating that she had grown reliant on my assistance and I was being selfish for suddenly denying her access. Several other neighbors have now heard about our spat and believe that I was overly harsh, as she is a single mother struggling to juggle various responsibilities. But I feel my vehicle was being misused and taken for granted. I'm trying to be understanding, but at the same time, I feel taken advantage of. So I'm at the bad guy for not allowing my neighbor to use my car anymore. I'm at the bad guy for not letting my brother and his family live in my dead brother's house. Long story short, one of my brothers, Mason, and his wife died last month. They lived in my hometown. I live in a different city 2-3 hours away. My other brother, G, and sister still live there. George wants to live in my dead brother's house. I get to my hometown at least once a month to see some friends and neighbors. 7 years ago, my parents downsized. They got a cottage with its 2 bedrooms. I stayed there for my monthly visit twice, and it was awful. So Mason and sister-in-law abandoned me their couch, and I accepted. They were living in a 2 bedroom apartment with 2 little kids and saving for a house. 2 years later, Mason and sister-in-law approached me for help and told me their idea. They wanted to buy a 4 bedroom house. The kids were growing up. The issue was that even with their savings, it was nowhere near enough for the down payment they needed for the mortgage to be approved, since only my brother was singing on it because sister-in-law had a debt problem that her parent created without her knowledge, and she didn't want to repair them. So they asked if I was willing to co-sign in. I wouldn't have to pay anything. I will be on the deed until they paid off, and I could use the 4th bedroom when I visit. And I said yes. Half of the house is mine, and the other half is my niece and nephew's. I'm gonna keep paying the mortgage. It's for them. They're staying with a friend at the moment, but they will be moving in with me in the near future, since neither of my siblings wanted to take care of them. Now, a few hours ago, George called me conversation. What's going to happen with the house? Nothing. I'll keep paying for it. It's for nibblings. It's just an empty house. Me and family should move in so we can sell our house and help our savings. No, we are going to use the house. Where are we going to stay when we go for a visit? The basement is huge. We'll get some baths and it'll be fine. Stop, I'm tired of you guys bullying me and taking advantage of me. When you are going to give me back the money I lent you for your current house? Oh, don't be that bad guy. You know money is tight. Not all of us can be the Elon Musk. You can do what you want, sell your house, but you're not gonna live in a Mason's house. Stop being such a bad guy. Think of your nibblings. I am. The ones there in my care. And that's a house for them to live in, not for you. And then I hanging up on him. I was with a friend when he called, and she said I was harsh with him. And now I feel a bit guilty about it. I know the money will be beneficial for them, but I'm not the bad guy here. I'm not the bad guy for telling my friend it's time to grow up. My best friend Olga and I met at the cafe this morning. Originally, I wanted to meet at 9 a.m., but she said she'll still be asleep, and we ended up meeting at midday. To be honest, it irked me because she never wants to meet before midday, and not all of us are lucky enough to be able to sleep in whenever we want. For context, she doesn't have neither one kids. She runs a business from home, and she typically works till like 3, 4 a.m. and wakes up at 11, 12, which is frankly ridiculous. I have kept my mouth shut for years, but today I have had enough. When we met, I told her it's time to grow up and stop acting like a teenager. I said that she is in her 30s and it's long overdue she learn how to wake up early. She said, I wake up when my body wants to wake up. This sleeping pattern gives me most energy because that's what my body likes. I said that she had to stop making excuses for her bad habits. She said she would wake up when she wanted and to drop the subject. I didn't. I said that career isn't everything, and once she finds a husband, she might need to change her habits because no man will accept a woman who sleeps until midday. She told me I was a witch, grabbed her coffee, and left me in the cafe alone. I was so embarrassed. I asked my husband to babysit our kids, and now I was stood up. I was furious and made a Facebook post while finishing my coffee, and some people think she was the bad guy, but if you mention that I was, and I shouldn't have said anything. Now, I'm not sure anymore. She hasn't messaged me yet with apologizes, but if I was the bad guy, I need to know so I can message her first. So, am I the bad guy? Am I the bad guy for commenting on my co-worker's outfit? I work at the tech company, and we had a new employee join us a month ago. She's part of my project team. I was immediately attracted to her. She has this distinct style, often wears colorful clothes and chokers, which are uncommon in our otherwise pretty, professional, and subdued dress code. I've got to be honest, I think she's really hot. We've been working on a project together for a couple of weeks now, and I've been thinking about asking her out. I was never quite sure if the timing was right, but I also didn't want to miss the opportunity if she might be interested. I'm not the best at reading signals, I admit, but she seemed friendly and open. We will often joke around, and she didn't seem uncomfortable with me. The situation came to a head yesterday when we were working on some code together. I leaned over her to get a better look at her screen. We share a large screen at our workstation. I noticed her choker was different, a new design, so I mentioned it saying it was super cute, and then, in the same breath, asked her if she'd like to go out for drinks sometime. She didn't really respond, just kind of nodded, and we continued with our work. The rest of the day was a bit awkward, but I chalked that up to it being a potentially uncomfortable situation. This morning, however, I was called into HR. She had reported the incident, saying that my advances were unwelcome and that she felt uncomfortable with how I leaned over her and made comments about her appearance. I was totally blindsided. I thought I was just expressing interest in a respectful way, but I realize now that the situation could be perceived differently. I was so stressed here that I had no intentions of making her feel uncomfortable or pressured. It was not my intention to invade her personal space or to objectify her. I simply thought we had a connection and wanted to explore that outside of work. Now, though, I'm facing disciplinary action at work, potentially even losing my job. My colleagues are aware of the situation, and the general vibe is negative towards me. I'm really struggling here, both with the potential professional repercussions and feel like a massive jerk. Am I the bad guy here? Am I the bad guy for taking a poop in the hotel bathroom? My friend Jamie and I took a trip together recently. We shared a hotel room for the trip, and Jamie told me that she thinks it's disgusting and disrespectful to go number 2 in the hotel room bathroom. Jamie thinks that the hotel bathroom, when sharing it without another person, should be used for number 1 only. Jamie requires that any number seconds be taken in the lobby bathroom. I told Jeremy that I'm a germaphobe and don't like public bathrooms, so I'll do my best to make sure the hotel room bathroom doesn't smell. If I need to go number 2, I'm not putting shoes on and hiking down to the lobby when there is a perfectly good fan in the room bathroom. I'll even buy spray if needed. I realize the room bathroom is still probably not the cleanest, but in my mind, it's certainly less used than the lobby's bathroom. And it's a bathroom. Their purpose is literally for going number 1 or 2. After a bit of back and forth, we couldn't come to an agreement. She continues to go to the lobby to take a poop, and I continue to use the hotel room bathroom. She isn't trial it and thinks I'm being disrespectful. Again, I even offered to buy spray. Yeah, this is so dumb. It's a bathroom. It's meant for going number 2. I don't see how I'm being disrespectful here. That's a part of the territory when you share a hotel room to save money. You deal with pubs like this. And yes, we split costs down the middle, so we both pay 50-50, but am I the bad guy here? Am I the bad guy for refusing to share a recipe with my sister-in-law? My beloved mother-in-law passed away recently. She had a few signature recipes that she always brought to family gatherings. One of them is a very unique dessert. I asked for the recipe for years and she would never share it. She finally passed the recipes down to me not long before she passed away, to share with friends and family at the repast meal after her funeral. I also made the dessert one other time to bring to a family gathering sister-in-law was hosting. My sister-in-law loves the desserts. She keeps calling it her dessert and demanding I share the recipe with her every time we see each other. I feel like if mother-in-law wanted her to have it, she will have shared it with her. And the fact that she's already claiming the dessert as her own instead of calling it the name mother-in-law assigned to it is disrespectful to her memory. Mother-in-law did not specifically mention whether or not she was okay with me sharing said recipes. She did also share the recipes with my stepdaughter and one other grandchild. Both agree that I shall not share the recipes with sister-in-law. My husband thinks I'm being a little petty, and it's not something I should start a family feud over. This is his brother's wife and his mother's recipes, so I do feel his opinion also matters. And I do feel the need to add a little context here. First, this is not my mother-in-law daughter. It's her daughter-in-law. Second, I wasn't bringing my stepdaughter and niece into it as a separate for my argument. But as proof, the recipes has already been handed down to the next generation by mother-in-law herself, and I'm not the only person who has it. 3. My sister-in-law was not at all close with my mother-in-law because she treated her horribly, which is most likely the reason she didn't give her the recipes. 4. I didn't get one reply here that was actually constructive, and I may change my mind about sharing the recipe eventually. I do realize it's not my recipe. I feel it does belong to my husband's family. Typically, I'm not a recipe gatekeeper. I have shared my own late mother's recipes far and wide, including with the sister-in-law in question. I just didn't like the way she demanded to have it and claim it as her own instead of putting due respect on my late mother-in-law's name. And I'm going to answer a few questions and try my best to set a few things straight. Sister-in-law is well aware of the name of the dessert and who all the recipes were shared with. I have not clearly communicated how offended I am over her claiming the dessert as her own, but I do plan on having the conversation privately. That said, my sister-in-law is not a terrible person. I actually do love her too, and have shared many recipes with her, and she with me. I believe sharing the recipes the right way could be a wholesome way of healing some generational trauma, and maybe the best way to honor her legacy of love. Am I right? Am I the bad guy for throwing a hot dog at my friend? Okay, so I might have overreacted a little here, but I was trying to defend my friend, and in doing so, think I might have been a bad guy the other night. I was on a girls' trip to Key West with 7 other girls. different ages but around the same age. I've never been to Key West. The only part of Florida I have been to was Miami. One friend has been to Key West a bunch and never mentioned anything about what to pack. So I packed outfits similar to what I wore in Miami, as I did a lot of the other girls. We got to Key West, and then, when nighttime came around, we got ready to go out. Molly was dressed a lot more laid back than the rest of us, and once we were out, we realized all of Key West were dressed like Molly, and we were the only group in heels and club dresses. That wouldn't bother me. We all looked really good, but a group of girls on the street made a comment about our outfits. I was annoyed and said something back about them being jealous, and Molly looked embarrassed, but didn't say anything. Later that night, Molly, another girl, Stephanie, and I went to get pizza. The line was really long, but I think Stephanie was just confused and drunk and accidentally cut the line. A group of guys called her out, and she made a joke asking if we could cut because we were pretty, and they called her Crossy. Molly said nothing and didn't defend Stephanie at all, and said we should just leave to get hot dogs and apologize to the guys after they were so mean to Stephanie. I yelled at the guys, and then we followed Molly to get hot dogs. In line for hot dogs, another group of girls makes a comment about Stephanie's outfits. At this point, I'm upset because Molly could have told us what to pick, and she didn't. And she has not once said anything to the people being mean about how Stephanie and I and the other girls are dressed. I had it at this point and went off on the girls, and Molly, yet again, looks embarrassed and apologized to random strangers making fun of her so-called best friends. I was so sick of Molly. I told her she isn't a woman who supports other women and was given pick-me vibes sitting with strangers, so I threw my hot dog at her. I was seeing red at the time and didn't realize I had gotten the condiments all over her outfit, which I felt a little bad about. But it was just a hot dog. I didn't physically hurt her. She rolled her eyes, still didn't apologize, and just said she was calling a car to the hotel and we can get in if we want, but she wouldn't wait for us. The rest of the trip was fine, but I felt like she was talking about me the entire weekend, and now I heard from Stephanie she's considering backing out of our next girls' trip. Am I the bad guy for being upset and throwing the hot dog when she refused to defend her friends? Am I the bad guy for preferring a cat over my family? My parents divorced when I was 12, and after I came out to my mother at 15, our relationship went down the drain. At that point, she was already with another man, and when I was 17, she gave birth to my brother. A year later, I graduated and left my hometown to go study and eventually work in another city. With time, my mother and I were able to fix our relationship to a point, but it was never the same. Truth is, I don't enjoy her presence, and I don't share anything about my life with her. Deep down, I cannot forgive the absolute loneliness and despair I experienced as a lesbian teenager in a not very LGBT-friendly country. This coldness of mine extends to my brother. He is a sweet kid, but has already learned some of my mother's close-minded views, not about gay people, but in general. Also, I generally don't like children. 2 years ago, my mother's boyfriend, my brother's father, passed away. My greatest achievement up to that moment was living in another city away from them and seeing them every few months. When he passed away though, my mother and my brother really had no one left in my hometown, so despite not really wanting to, I suggested they move to the city I lived, so I could help them pay the bills and my brother will have a better future. I don't spend much time with them. Sometimes we have dinner together, but mostly at work. After work, I go to the gym, and by the time I'm home, they've gone to bed. Once a month or so, I take my brother to the movies, but it's always on my mother's request. I told them from the beginning that they will live their lives, and I will live mine, and that will be it. I go to birthdays, my brother's important events, etc., but that's about it. My mother was not very happy about my disinterest in them, but at this point she was more or less used to it and didn't pressure me. Very recently, we got a kitten. I love her and constantly down at her. I'm willing to change my schedule around her needs. I feed her, play with her, talk to her. My treatment of my mom and brother is the same as always. I've noticed my mother's irritation with me increase, and yesterday she confronted me. She said it's extremely disappointed to see me preferring an animal to my fatherless brother. That he's been needing someone to pay attention to him now more than ever, and that no child deserves to grow up knowing that it's less important than a pet. I don't think my brother is less important. I love him in my own way, but I've been distant from them for years now, and don't really have it in me to change that. Most of you maybe assumed that they've come to live with me, but technically, my mother sold her apartment in our hometown. I bought a new one here. I gave her all my savings to help out, but her money and my brother's inheritance from his father were more, and so they have 3.5 and 2.5 of the apartment, and I have nothing. Before they came here, I was renting. I'm currently saving up money and waiting for my girlfriend to graduate so we can move out together. Also, it was my mother who got the kitten, but I've created quite the bond with her in the short time she's been here. So, guys, am I the bad guy here?